Did you ever wonder how a coach is made and who decides exactly what goes into it? Well, we'd love to show you, so sit back and enjoy the tour. Sometimes dealers order the coaches with specific options in mind, but in some cases, buyers like yourselves actually come to the factory and sit down with one of our sales coordinators. They go over the fabric choices, floor plans, and features they'd like to have in their coach. After the order for the coach is written up, it's reviewed and added to the production schedule. Each week, Roadmaster chassis managers are given a new schedule with detailed order specification booklets. Each one of these booklets contains details on coach model, floor plan, and the components and features the coach will include. This booklet stays with the coach as it travels down the production line, guiding our teams as the coach is constructed. A big advantage of Monaco Coach Corporation's diesel-powered motorhomes is the fact that we design and build our own diesel chassis. Even our gas model chassis are modified to exacting requirements and standards. This allows us the opportunity to optimize handling and performance, ride comfort, basement storage, and ease of maintenance. This is Monaco's Roadmaster chassis facility, where the life of the coach begins. Each chassis is built for a specific model and floor plan. The booklets we mentioned earlier are reviewed by the steel fabricators, who in turn use a cut list for each particular chassis to supply steel tubes to the welders using high-quality steel. The first step is to assemble all of the chassis' main components. The chassis starts to take shape as the axles, H-frames, main rails, and undercarriage are assembled. The H-frames and air ride systems are key reasons for the excellent ride characteristics our coaches have. They allow the chassis to move and make adjustments to smooth out the ride. Once the main chassis is assembled, components like the electrical boxes, the steering box drag link, and ride height sensors are added. Ride height sensors are one of the reasons our chassis have a reputation for great handling. They detect lean or sway and stabilize the ride by adjusting the pressure to the airbags. Next, the engine is mounted. These engines are the same engines you find in the big semi-trucks. Our coaches have a big advantage though. They only have to pull 30 or 40% of the weight that the big rigs have to. You can imagine how that increases the performance. Now the wiring and air systems are added. When you think of the braking system, electrical systems, air systems, the steering and suspension, you begin to realize just how complex this chassis is. There's a lot that goes into these chassis. Most of it is done by hand, to exacting specifications. A little further down the line, the generator that supplies power for these big rigs is installed. Next, we install the radiators. We design and build our hydraulic cooling systems based on the findings of our own testing done north of Las Vegas in Death Valley. Our aim is to build a coach that gives our coach owners confidence that their coach will handle the toughest conditions. Each station in the Roadmaster production line has rigid inspections that have to meet exacting standards. When the coach reaches the last station, it goes through another complete inspection and testing to meet our tough standards. The chassis then moves from the Roadmaster facility to one of our production facilities, where we put the house on the chassis. The transition from a chassis to a motorhome starts here. The chassis is painted using an electrostatic process to ensure each part of the chassis is covered with anti-rust paint. The large storage bays are installed below as preparation for the floor installation takes place above. In order to keep moisture out, silicone is applied to the entire frame surface before the oriented structure board and Darco subfloor is mounted. A layer of decibel paper is placed between the two layers of structure board as a sound barrier, as well as another layer of moisture protection. Carpet pad, carpet, tile, and hardwood flooring is then installed according to floor plan and options. At this point, preparations are made for holding tanks, water lines, aqua-hot system, and other features that require plumbing. Most of these systems will be installed during the next few stations. After the flooring is installed, the large cabinets, closets, and appliances are installed or staged on the floor before the walls and ceiling are added. The cabinets and inner walls are built in-house by our own woodcrafters. The cabinets are built in two stages. The first stage is the cabinet, closet, or inner wall. The second stage is the doors and trim. Each has its own wood shop that hums with veteran craftsmen operating modern equipment. The cabinets are built to exacting specifications with only fine quality materials being used. Stains and finishes complete the job according to each chosen decor. Meanwhile, while the assembly process continues, another group is preparing the walls and ceiling. Insulation and other layers are added to steel or aluminum frames. Cutouts for windows, doors, and other required openings are created. And finally, wallpaper is added. The walls and ceiling structures are then stored until the coach reaches their station. When the walls and ceiling are hoisted into position, they're bolted or welded in place. The amount of hardware required to build these fine coaches is truly amazing. Monaco has a larger selection of hardware than the largest hardware store on the West Coast. Installation of the plumbing, cabinets, and appliances continues as the coach progresses through the next few stations. Even the toilets are high-tech. The house wiring begins with pulling hundreds of feet of wire along the length and width of the coach using color-coded wires. Lights, plugs, switches, and fuse boxes seem to suddenly appear out of nowhere. The slide rooms, which have been pre-assembled in-house, are installed with motors, hydraulics, and gearing that make them extend and retract with a push of a button. The front and rear caps, which have been prepped offline with hardware, lights, and windshield, are then mounted to the coach and carefully aligned and trimmed. The ceiling, which already has 1.5-inch dense insulating foam within the frame, is then lined front to rear with beveled styrofoam insulation for soundproofing and additional protection from heat and cold. A vapor barrier is placed over it, and finally the roof is brought in with a specially designed crane assembly. The roof is then precisely fitted to the coach. This results in a crowned top for exceptional runoff ability. The roof is then precision cut for installation of air conditioners, satellite dishes, exhaust fans, and antennas. As quickly as the holes appear in the roof, they're filled with the appliances and accessories that were intended to go into them. Inside the coach, electricians and cabinet makers install TVs, home entertainment systems, speakers and satellite systems, radios, and DVD players. The bay doors and latches are installed and aligned as skirting is applied. The skirting is trimmed to precisely match the walls and front and rear caps. As the coach nears completion, the theme-inspired furniture, countertops, window valances, and trim are added. As the coach moves on down the line, cleanliness is always an important part of the job. Our employees take pride in their jobs, and it shows in their attention to detail. In another area, the dash is prepared by heating the vinyl and then stretching it onto the fiberglass shell and cooling it with water. After hours of prep work, the 12-volt electricians install the dash and armrest components. Ergonomic and aesthetically designed gauges and controls are put in place and wired. The engine is started and the coach drives off the assembly line. All of the components and systems get turned on and tested for proper operation. The outside may not look pretty yet, but this motorhome is ready for a test drive. The test driver checks the coach for roadworthiness before driving off the lot. After the coach's initial test drive, it goes to the undercoating bay where a protective undercoating is applied to the bottom of the coach. This will help protect the coach from road salts and chemicals that can cause corrosion over time. One reason our coaches look as good as they drive is the elaborate paint and finish each coach gets. The entire coach is sanded and prepped for paint. Each paint scheme is carefully laid out and taped off. The coach then enters a paint booth where a very carefully controlled climate is maintained for each procedure. The room is kept at 76 degrees during the application of the paint. The air is completely replaced and filtered every 3 minutes. A filtering system in the floor uses gravity to help filter out any particulate that may be in the air. When they're through painting, the temperature is raised to 155 degrees for 45 minutes to cure the paint. The coach then moves forward into the next prep area for more layout and then back to another paint booth. There are 4 colors and layouts to be done on each coach. After the paint process is done, the coach moves into the final finish area where awnings, air horns, and mirrors are installed and outside detailing is performed. The coach then goes into a rain room where water is sprayed all over the coach for several hours, simulating the worst rainstorm you can imagine. This is done with the slide rooms in the extended position as well as retracted to check for water tightness. It then gets a second test drive to evaluate and fine-tune the systems and equipment installed or activated since the initial test drive. Even though everything is completed, tested, cleaned, and polished in the final finish area, this is not the end of the story. The final stop for the coach is the white glove area. This detailed inspection process involves the retesting of all the systems and features on the coach, including a final test drive, to ensure it's ready for delivery. As one of our quality control employees said, "I work for coach owners and Monaco pays me to do it."